This episode is brought to you by Stars. Lisa Tadeo's best-selling book is about to become your favorite new show. Based on a true story, the new Stars original series 3 Women stars Shailene Woodley as Gia, a grieving and struggling writer who embarks on a cross-country road trip where she meets 3 women determined to radically change their lives. This one is not to be missed. Watch the season premiere of 3 Women now, only on Stars and the Stars app.
Are your eyes overstimulated? Relax and protect them with Essilor Eyezen lenses. Switch to Essilor Eyezen lenses and find your local Essilor expert at Essilor.com.
Want to listen to this episode ad-free? Head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. For a limited time, we are offering free 1-week trials to our Patreon, just so you can see all of the exciting audio and video episodes that you get to unlock as a Patreon member. And as an ITBR Professor member, which is $10 a month, you receive access not only to our audio and video episodes, but also our monthly book club. This month, we are reading The Book of Gothel, a retelling of Rapunzel through the witch's eyes by Mary McMinn. Join us virtually on July 21st at 5 p.m. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com. Please rate and subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify. And please mention the podcast to one of your friends. It really helps get the word out there, and it allows me to continue getting really exciting guests, Mary to continue her True Crime and Academia show, and Christian Garcia to continue to co-host our rewatch show, whether it be Smash or Queer as Folk. And we are now on YouTube, so you can listen to the podcast on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube lover, we have you covered there as well. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Happy summer season. I'm really excited to be joined with a repeat guest, BJ Irons. If you didn't listen to his episode, I don't know, what was that? 8 months ago? It was in the fall, if I remember correctly, BJ, the episode came out. But we talked about mythology, all of his work on like gay male romance. So it's really nice to return to your work with a new novel that you have. It is called Up Your HOA Hole. And we're definitely going to get into that really punny title that you have there. So I was talking to BJ, who, if you don't know, is in the field of education. We connect as fellow educators, but he's an educational leader, a college professor. He writes a lot from personal experience as a gay man, which contributes to his novels, including all things about HOAs and the horror show that can happen with them. He always is bringing exciting fictional works to LGBTQIA readers. He's a Pisces. Welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, BJ.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Dr. Rimby. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was so excited when you had talked about how Up Your HOA Hole draws a lot from Desperate Housewives. And I know that it's now the 20th anniversary, which is wild because I remember when it premiered.
Yes, same.
Yeah, I was in elementary school going into middle school, but I just remember how much of an appointment television show it was. Like, do you remember the fandom around Desperate Housewives on ABC?
Completely. Yep. I think I was 14 at the time too. So I was really young, but again, just was so engrossed in it. And even at a young age, it was just, and there's so many fans, so many people. Even when I talk to current just gay male figures or gay men in the community, like they always joke around like, oh my gosh, on Sundays we used to rush home from dinners just to catch up on Desperate Housewives to watch it. So
yeah. And now TV channels really can't get anyone watching anything on a Sunday. That's like the issue right now with the Real Housewives of New Jersey's on a Sunday night. And I mean, I think we now have streaming and everyone's waiting for it to be streamed. And back then there was no streaming. I think you were lucky if you had TiVo to record. So times have really shifted. But, rewatching this pilot from October 3rd, 2004, I just was actually really captivated. I watched it with my boyfriend. Um, and I'm so glad that you drew my attention to the themes in your new novel and like how you kind of felt that Desperate Housewives fit into this narrative that you've created. Like, what was it like watching the pilot again?
It was interesting just because there's so many things you forgot about. Like, oh my gosh, I forgot how young and hot Jesse Metcalf was. Still is, but was back in the day. um, I forgot how Eva Longoria hasn't changed one bit in 20 years at all. She hasn't aged a bit.
No, she's
Yeah,
stunning.
it was interesting to see it. And it's funny when I was writing this novel, Up Your HOA Hole. Like, obviously, I did have Desperate Housewives in mind, and I had a lot of other different sort of inspirations from it too. So it was kind of fun to watch the show again and kind of figure out, oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure I did draw inspiration from this scene or this character or this particular looking house or yard or things like that. So definitely had a major influence on the book.
Yeah, well, something I thought, like, if we just want to walk through the episode with everyone, since the title of this podcast episode is drawing everyone's attention to the first episode, which, BJ, you might have ushered in a new rewatch because I'm rewatching Queer as Folk, rewatching Smash. Now I might be rewatching Desperate Housewives with, so many different guests and writers and creative people. So like as the premiere episode of Desperate Housewives, maybe I didn't forget, but I just love the opening of Wisteria Lane, and you get that panoramic view of the homes, and then you have Gabrielle running, like she's jogging, and then you get into Mary Alice's narrative, and how quickly like Mary Alice, commits suicide, and it's like how she's going to then become the voice of the whole frame narrative. But I feel like they pack so much in those first like 2 minutes of the show, and like just introducing each of these women. It's a true ensemble cast, and I think that's what I missed. I missed those shows a lot. I don't know. How about you? Like when you were watching the beginning?
Yeah, I forgot just how quick it was. There's 45 minutes, and there were some scenes that I thought went in. I can't remember. I thought went into episode 2 or episode 3, and I was like, yeah, they really packed in a bunch. And you got right away, you knew who all 4 main characters were, their personalities, how different they were. Yeah, definitely packed a punch. And again, I like how it kind of told you from the get-go what this series is about. And again, similar to my book, like it has that sort of iceberg effect, right? Like at the top, you see the pretty lawns, the houses, the nice, cordial neighbors, but beneath the surface, which is the majority of it, there's so much brewing tension, drama, and things that people, keep closed and hide from the surface. So it's kind of cool how that episode kind of tied that in.
Yeah, and if it's okay with you, I actually was going to like read some of your prologue on my TikTok live later.
Sure, go for it.
I love now trying to like go live on TikTok with writer friends of mine and just like, publicizing their work. But for the sake of everyone who's not on TikTok right now and they're listening to the podcast, I just love how your prologue, like Gwendolyn Thornton, that section, like that she could picture no other home as perfect as her current quaint residency in Sterling Winds, a lavish suburban community where she was the HOA president. The state of every lawn in the neighborhood was lush and verdant. The fuchsia and pink crepe myrtles blossomed on time every year and offered a pleasant fragrance. The neighbors were friendly for the most part, and holiday events and parties that became tradition were attended by all at Fulgid Park and in the gorgeous homes of those who chose to host particular get-togethers in the neighborhood. Like, I just love, like you said, it has that Wisteria Lane, that very white picket fence, suburban comfort, and the artifice of what these characters are hiding behind. So I'm sensing some like Bree Vandekamp, Gwendolyn Thornton connections here. I mean, is that a person of intrigue in Desperate Housewives? Is Bree and how she tries to appear to everyone.
Definitely. So I had two people in mind when I was creating Gwendolyn Thornton. It was definitely Bree Vandekamp, definitely, minus the whole NRA aspect of her completely. So Gwendolyn's definitely not that. Gwen does lean towards more on the progressive side compared to Bree. But definitely Bree, just her perfectionism qualities and personality. And the other person was her confidence. I got from was, when you watch the show Scandal? Did you watch Scandal at all? So Millie, Bellamy Young was kind of the other character I kind of thought of too, as, just the confident, vice president's wife. So I kind of blended the two together. And that's pretty much who Gwendolyn Thornton is, a combination of those two characters.
Yeah. Well, and even before your prologue, I just love this Ron Bracken quote, who I had to look up like who Ron Bracken is, but a notable author. I mean, do you want to read the quote by Ron Bracken or to
sure, remember? Yeah, it's homeowner associations, the means by which people give up their rights to the neighborhood control freaks. Yeah. Good
paraphrasing. But I just love that whole neighborhood control freaks line, just because my aunt, who's a middle grade writer, on her TikTok, I remember recently, she's relocated to Florida and talked about how she has to get approval for even her garden or tomato plants or anything. It just has to go through this whole ordeal. And I know like you have some experience with these neighborhood control freaks, right? I think you have to deal with an HOA.
Your teen requested a ride, but this time not from you. It's through their Uber teen account. You drive your teenager around, a lot, to their friend Jacob's house, their other friend Jake's house, to James's, to Jaden's, to Jalen's, to...
Mom, this is Jake's house, not Jacob's.
Now with an Uber teen account, your teen can request a ride under your supervision. They'll ride with a highly rated driver, and with live trip tracking, you'll follow along the whole ride to their friends' houses that all sound the same. Add your teen to your Uber account today. See app for details.
Bye, Mom.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate is the world's biggest coffee lover because we love all the ways you enjoy. Wait. Coffee Mate can't love coffee more than me. I'm a foodie. I went to Kyoto just for a nitro matcha latte. What? Oh, I have to finish the ad. Coffee Mate, for the love of coffee.
Yeah, so I do want to say off the bat, like, by no means is this book, like, I obviously can see the title, by no means is this book anti-HOA. It's actually more of a satirical humor take on it. So there's a wide range of HOAs, like the one that you just mentioned. It's very severe. Like I even the HOAs I've been on and been part of, there's no rules against gardening at least, but definitely rules with like, painting, exterior mailbox colors, any sort of like sheds or fences, things like that. Definitely you need to get HOA approval on. But my experience with HOAs, I lived in my past 3 communities I've been in have been all, under HOAs, all been, similar suburban style communities. And I've been on HOA boards myself. My partner's been one of the HOA presidents of our previous community. A ton of my friends have been on HOA boards, and we just have tons of issues and drama with HOA. Some good, some bad. Again, there's pro and con to HOAs, right? The pros is that HOAs hold people accountable, right? You're not going to have a neighbor that's going to wind up having a trashy yard, a trashy lawn, things of that nature. It keeps the aesthetics of the neighborhood clean and pristine, and also it keeps up property values. So those are the benefits of HOAs. On the flip side, sometimes they can be overly severe for those who like to push the envelope a little bit when it comes to homes and things like that. And so there's a give and take relationship with it. So, but yes, I've had 10 years of being on HOAs and dealing with HOAs, and believe me, I've been in HOA meetings and it is a ton of drama. I cannot believe there's not a reality TV show yet out on just behind the scenes of like going into HOA meetings and seeing all the craziness that can happen there.
Well, and like, I know we don't know what Wisteria Lanes, like if they're a civic association or an HOA. I mean, I know though that because of the development of the the manicuredness of the development, there has to be some rules and regulations. But yeah, right. I'm glad you cleared it up. You're not, BJ Irons is not dragging HOAs. Were you a fan of the TCM, Turner Classic Movie Network, and you couldn't wait to see what classic movie they were going to premiere? And when you went to Hollywood/MGM studios in Disney World, you would always go to the Great Movie Ride. I absolutely loved the Great Movie Ride, especially when we landed in the Wizard of Oz scene and the Wicked Witch of the West came out from a heap of smoke and confronted Dorothy and Glinda. Well, I have a podcast for you. My good friend Christian Garcia's podcast is called That Old Gay Classic Cinema. So he combines classic cinema analysis with a queer study angle. So some of his recent episodes include Singing in the Rain, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Sunset Boulevard with our good friend Janine Cucci, the co-owner of the Soapbox NY. Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, The Philadelphia Story, and so much more. You can listen to his podcast wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple or Spotify. And every Friday, I release a new That Old Gay Classic Cinema episode because he is now part of the ITBR network. I am now releasing his episodes on the ITBR podcast. So make sure that you have a listen because I was on his first episode talking all things The Sound of Music, which, if you didn't know, I was Captain Von Trapp when I was in high school. So make sure you follow him on TikTok and Instagram at That Old Gay Classic Cinema and rate, subscribe, do all the things, and please help support my friend Christian's podcast. I know you're going to love it. While it's still summer, and I hope so many of you out there are enjoying beach days, I know that while I'm at the beach, I'll have a thought pop into my mind like, wait, what am I going to assign on my syllabus? What books do I want my students to read? I know if you are a college educator listening right now, or a student, or someone who just really enjoys and values academic writing and academic topics, I have a press that you need to know about. It's called Broadview Press, and it's an independent press. I've had a few of their writers on the podcast, including Dr. Sid Dobrin, who was recently on the podcast to talk about how artificial intelligence is changing the game for humanities education. Soon, I'm going to have Dr. Andrea Sullivan Clark on to talk all about philosophies on Turtle Island, especially indigenous philosophies. And what does she think about how pop culture looks at Native American narratives? If you are looking for a text to assign your students in the humanities classroom, Broadview Press has you covered. They have a book that just came out called Academic Writing Now, a brief guide for busy students. It is designed to cover the basics of a college writing course in a concise, student-friendly format. Each chapter concentrates on a crucial element of composing an academic essay. It is available as an ebook for under $30, and it includes readings on contemporary issues like AI, climate change, and campus life. I'm so excited because Broadview Press has released an exclusive discount code, Ivory Tower, for 20% off your broadviewpress.com order. That's Ivory Tower for 20% off. Make sure you follow them on Instagram at Broadview Press. Enjoy all of your reading. It's not a condemnation book, but it is a great way to engage with the satire of what can happen, especially when an openly gay couple for the first time comes to this community and is met with, the older generation or those who aren't like used to what it's like to live next to a gay couple. So like even that I feel is something that Desperate Housewives grapples with from the first episode, which is the different ages, but also the different careers and ways that the women are in communication as the core friend group. I mean, I think it is interesting that Eva Longoria's character, that, she's was a model. Like, to me, she has the most lavish lifestyle of glitz.
Definitely.
Yeah, like even their home. My boyfriend and I were saying, like, wow, look at this Italian marble that, she wants Jesse Metcalf to have sex with her on that table. It's like so above and beyond their home or how much the lawn has to be mowed.
Yeah.
But it's very different than Bree, like in her lifestyle. Like she's more of the Martha Stewart or Betty Crocker housewife. And then, right, you get Lynette was the career woman who was a lawyer. And then was she a lawyer or just in the corporate world? I forget.
She was in the marketing corporate world. Yeah.
Marketing.
She was
Okay,
like a marketing director or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And like she really misses that world, but then felt compelled because her husband told her to become a housewife. And and then we do have the single, mother, Susan. So I feel like from the beginning, we do have like maybe not racially, it's very diverse, except for Eva Longoria, but it is diverse women with their careers or backgrounds and household. I mean, from the opening shot, Mary Alice is no longer alive. So like there's definitely that whole suburban fantasy is shattered, which I think is still an amazing way to like begin a series. But yeah, so with all of that discussion of the characters, I'm just curious, like, did you feel even with creating your characters, like not just Gwendolyn, but like such that it was so important to craft nuanced, unique personalities as an ensemble in your book?
Definitely. Again, you'll see in the book that there's 4 main characters I go over as well and tell different points of view from, but then I introduce so many other characters that have their own chapters. So there's definitely quite the cast in the book. And then again, in doing so, that's a brave, I think, to take on, just to introduce so many characters. But in the same token, I knew I had to make sure each one had a uniqueness and had their own personalities that were, definitely differentiated compared to the others. Obviously, Gwen is the perfect, she hosts all the parties. She's the picture perfect HOA president. Even with the gay couple, Preston and Carter Higgins, I definitely had to differentiate them. Preston's more of the worrywart, right? He's the one that's trying to fit into the neighborhood. He wants to, be with the in crowd, has a lot of high anxiety about it. And then Carter's more the, the go with the flow, kind of easy, always sees the glass half full kind of character. And the other main character is Lacey, who she's sort of the younger, one of the younger generation couples in the neighborhood. She is sort of a pot stirrer, but again, she's the one that befriends the guys very easily. And then you have such an array of side characters, like, the Mikulski from Desperate Housewives, the Martha Hoobers, like all those are also introduced in the book as well. And they have their own unique personalities too.
Yeah. Well, and how about when Martha Hoover discovers Mary Alice's body and then she like calls the police, but then runs and rips off the property of Mary Alice from the blender? Like she is such, like, she holds no bars. Like she doesn't care about decorum. She's so gossipy. She's like the woman, always opening the curtain and staring at what everyone's business is. She truly is the town like crier.
It's that first scene too that kind of caught me on. I was like, oh, you know what? Now looking back on it, because I was like, 14 when this first came, but now looking back on it, I can see why it was such a hit with gay culture, the show, because like the cattiness, the campiness of like shadiness and things like that, just just the funny anecdotes, and definitely the campiness of it is definitely what made it so popular with gay culture. I think scenes like that kind of made me think about like the reasoning behind it. And it makes total sense, obviously, now looking back on it.
Yeah, you're right. Like Mark Cherry, who produced or directed and he's the creator of the series. You're right, BJ. Like every line, that's why it feels so literary, this show. I love a TV show like Abbott Elementary, I feel is doing this really well right now. But or Hacks. Like I just like a show where the script is the focal point, and like this show, every line was always delivered, especially in the beginning. I mean, the later seasons, it starts to, like any series, kind of get jumbled, but the beginning is just so compelling. I mean, like when the women are sitting down and you have that line about an erect penis doesn't have a conscience. Like, and then I think Lynette said, well, a limp one doesn't either. Or limp ones aren't better, something like that. And I just love that they like push the envelope so much for a primetime show. But even like Bree, when she's delivering food at the wake to Mary Alice's family, she like seems to be gracious, but then she says, okay, well, I need these back. And like gives them all these rules. Like, you could have this, the guests have this. It's like she's so neurotic, but it feels really realistic. Like, even though it's a soap opera type show, it feels like you could see these people in real life. And that's what, like you said, it feels like reality TV before reality TV was really existing in this kind of way. Like, I mean, I remember Andy Cohen said this is why the Real Housewives of Orange County, like, they decided to produce it was because of Desperate Housewives.
Yep.
Like, people wanted more of these storylines. And I think we can get into the Housewives. I mean, I know you are a fan of the Real Housewives, aren't you, BJ?
Completely. Die hard.
Yeah. I mean, are you still a fan after so many like boring seasons happening right now?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I still wind up getting drawn back into it. Yeah, there's some seasons that have, sort of, I think have extended, have gone the course, and I mean, obviously they're, getting reboots soon. So.
Oh, you're talking about New Jersey, right?
There you go.
I just think, with New Jersey, I think if you can't have the cast talking to each other, you have a problem as an ensemble show trying to create stories. But I heard Orange County, and from the trailer, that seems like it's going to be back to a real catty, like dragging each other, sensational show.
Yeah, I will say, actually, OC was one of those that was one of the ones that kind of plateaued for a little while. But yeah, the last season, I think this season too, also it's definitely bringing it back. And just the trailer was insane on that. And that cast photo was phenomenal, by the way.
Yes. Well, and it just reminds me of like the beginning of Beverly Hills. For me, is one of the best in terms of like Lisa Vanderpump and Kyle Richards and her sister, Kim, like Brandy Glanville. Like, they all were just such interesting personalities that I always say anyone who wants to watch The Real Housewives should start with Beverly Hills season 1. Like, I think like that one, Jersey season 1, like all the season 1s mostly, except Orange County, I think you could skip season 1. I don't really engage. I like when Heather Dubrow joins Orange County.
Cool. Yep, I agree. I think Orange. Yeah, I would say that's a good starting point with Orange County, and even New York. I think a couple of beginning seasons in New York. I think once they got to season 3 or 4, they kind of found their fun course too with that group.
Yeah, and I love when Bethany returns, and then you have the whole like Tom cheating at the Regency on Countess Luann, and Bethany, who like follows us on TikTok, but is just such a masterful marketer that as she's delivering this news and she's starting to tear up, she like gets the bottle of Skinny Girl and like puts it towards the camera. And then she's like, oh, I'm so devastated. It's like, but see, I feel like that's what we enjoyed about those shows. And I think it's gotten to a point where it harms people's lives in certain ways on certain casts. Like with Jersey. Like, I think once they're starting to leak storylines to bloggers or the media, like, and then you find out that the cast is behind it, and like all of that is becoming really concocted and hard to follow.
And just how insane in recent years with Real Housewives, just how social media, just like it's vicious, like just death threats and just threats to families and accusing people of making fake accounts and fake bots and paying people to have fake accounts to to tarnish someone. It's gotten out of hand, I think, from that lens as well.
I agree. Well, that's kind of why I feel there should be some policies and procedures with social media because, like Bethany has said, social media is media, which, you know, we're in media right now too. And you know, um, I think we're just in such a different landscape now. So, I think it's exciting though to return to a show like 20 years ago and kind of like see where you push the envelope in terms of what happens when a gay couple like Preston and Carter. I mean, can you explain the differences you feel between Preston and Carter, like to tease everyone out there?
Sure. Yeah. So again, Up Your HOA Hole, there's this community called Sterling Winds, and it is a community where it's sort of a melting pot in terms of political views and ages. Obviously, in the beginning, it used to be like a lot of older generation group, and so now it's starting to become a little more progressive, in which the HOA president, Gwendolyn Thornton, she likes and appreciates. She wants to see some major change and transformation in the neighborhood. And so with the new neighbors, first gay couple in the community, Preston and Carter, when they come in, it kind of people's, I guess, claws come out, and they kind of reveal who they are and themselves, and then so it sort of creates a little battleground here and there, and which is again true in a lot of neighborhoods, honestly, nowadays in our current political climate and whatnot. But when it comes to Carter and Preston, as a gay couple, Preston is the one who doesn't want to step on toes. He's the one that wants to fit in. He wants to be Gwendolyn Thornton, someone he admires. So he wants to, be in her circle and sort of do things the right way and, follow her lead. He kind of is growing accustomed to that sort of lifestyle. Whereas Carter is kind of like go with the flow. Like he doesn't kind of, I guess, give a shit, right? He's kind of like, oh, just do this. Just be yourself. Like who gives a, so he's more, again, go with the flow, kind of looser, partner in that couple. So
Yeah. Do you feel that, I mean, like my boyfriend has always cautioned me because of just how public I am with my work in media or like certain sensational topics that I get into. I don't reveal a lot about our relationship, but as much as you're comfortable with BJ, do you feel like with your own, relationship that you drew personal aspects from the dynamic with you and your partner when it came to Preston and Carter?
Oh, definitely. I'm definitely more on the Preston side of things. Like I'm the kind of person that does things like properly or likes I try not to step on toes too much when it comes to people. I unfortunately, like a lot of us, I kind of do care about what people think in our neighborhood and things of that nature. So actually, definitely, I took kind of my own relationship and kind of took that dynamic and kind of helped mold some of these characters, Preston and Carter. Definitely, for sure.
Do you have conversations with, and just remind me, is it your husband? Like, are you, do you call each other husband? Are you married? Just to use the right terminology.
Boyfriends.
Boyfriends. Okay. Okay. I'm just always cautious. But like with your boyfriend, do you feel that when you're writing, you're able to be very open in terms of drawing from your personal experience, or do you feel that you self-censor yourself in a way to kind of protect the boundary of your relationship and dynamic?
I don't think so, so to speak. Like I said, with Preston and Carter, they're sort of loosely based on just not every part of my relationships with people here and there, including my partnership, is necessarily a character takes on completely. So like these two characters, like they're not necessarily us to a T, right? Like for instance, like Preston's way more high anxiety than I am, in that nature. And there's aspects that I have Carter too, or sometimes I am a little bit go with the flow, but yeah, regarding like our relationship and things of that nature, I wouldn't say I completely I'm not, I guess there's no purpose really with trying to shelter it, hide it, or even just completely put it into a book. So I guess kind of in the middle, so to speak. Yeah.
So it would be different than if you were, writing a memoir. Like there'd be more of that personal boundary, public boundary in terms of your relationship. Like it seems like you're saying because it's fictional, you have a protection in terms of like how you're drawing from your personal life.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's true. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm like saying things about my relationship dynamic, all good things, but I never like to air too much of my personal business just because I realize I used to have a very like flippant way of just divulging personal information and now I'm trying to create more boundaries, especially as an educator. Like I'm sure as you also like with your pseudonym, like again, I know that we had talked about that the first time you came here, but like there's a reason why you feel free in your writing an author persona because like you don't really have yourself publicly out there when it comes to like students finding out about your work. Is that still something you're processing?
For the most part, it was more of a worry when I first started writing. Now, again, I think if I went back like this novel, I wouldn't mind. I would have no quarrel with changing like the author to my real name, but yeah, it's still something I kind of still processing. Is just separating BJ Irons from my real life, and so, but it's a creative thing. It's a fun side thing, so it has its perks as well, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, just because it is relevant to Desperate Housewives is I still love that moment where Julie and Susan are trying to clog the drain to get Mike Delfino to come over. Um, but like, how do you feel the children? Because I guess I forgot even in the first episode that the children of each of these, well, some of the women, but that they really like play a role in what's going to happen with the future of the show. Like that these actors are going to stay for like 6 years or 7 years. Like even Andrew, I mean, he goes on a wild storyline.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's funny too. Even the children, they all have their own personalities, right? Like even the Bree, even though she is the most perfect character, her kids are definitely the most I would say disobedient, but the oppositional to her, right? They definitely want to not follow her lead, or they want to just cause chaos within the family. And then meanwhile, Susan's daughter Julie is kind of actually the perfect daughter, right? She's smart, she's talented, and it's cool because I remember in Housewives, in Desperate Housewives, I think it's seasons 5 or 6 is when they jump to like 15, 20 years later or something like that, or 10 years later. And so now you start to see the kids growing up, and even certain housewives have new kids that are younger. And it's funny actually how the dynamics change, because some of the perfect kids turn out to be not so great adults and have flaws, whereas some of the kids who are awful actually wind up being more civilized adults, like Andrew, Bree's son, for instance. So it's kind of cool to see that too.
Yeah. Well, we also have Edie, played by Nicolette Sheridan, which I miss Nicolette Sheridan. I wonder what she's up to.
I know. I heard they've been trying to get her on Beverly Hills Housewives. Actually, I heard she was like one of the front runners. They've been like kind of like at the time Denise Richards came, she was one of the forefront people they were trying to get on the show. So,
yeah, I think she would be great, but I don't think she's really interested anymore about being in the entertainment business. But with Edie, like she's basically the like harlot of the neighborhood, to put it kindly. But I just love this whole competition about whether or not she's going to, get the new single guy in the area. And just the whole house burning, scene. And like
After Pride Month is over, sometimes it can be hard to find our favorite LGBTQ books, TV shows, films, even theater experiences. Well, don't worry, because I have the magazine for you. It is called The Gay and Lesbian Review, and their latest July and August issue just got released. It's called Sanctuary. Well, here is what editor Richard Snyder Jr. just described about the latest issue. He writes, The impulse for any minority to seek out safe spaces or sanctuaries exists in proportion to the oppression they suffer in their social world. From the catacombs of Rome to the colony of Plymouth, the upshot of this quest is well attested. Members of sexual minorities have undoubtedly been forming their own private communities for centuries. Would Plato's Symposium be an early example? But it was only in the 19th century that sexual identity became a criterion for forming associations of like-minded individuals. Well, this issue has everything. An article about Andy Warhol's factory, an article about how Nantucket became a gay haven, how a lesbian art colony formed in St. Augustine, even how a gay bar in San Antonio fought back and won for recognition of the LGBTQ community. So, the ITBR is so excited to partner with the Gay and Lesbian Review, who is offering an exclusive discount code. Head on over to glreview.org, click subscribe, and enter the promo code ITBR50, that is ITBR50, to receive 50% off any print or digital subscription. And make sure you follow at the GL Review on Instagram to see all of their latest news. I hope you enjoy your reading. Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and when I'm not here with a podcast microphone in the ITBR, I am consulting with several clients. I have small business clients where I provide them social media strategies. I have writing clients. I've worked on college admission essays. I've worked on a graduate student's thesis. I've worked on journal article editing. And I also have worked with those who are creating a podcast or who have a podcast on social media and ideas for how to get their podcast out there and trying to target their audience. So if you are interested in any of my consulting services, you can just reach out to me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com or search Ivory Tower Boiler Room on Google, and you will see my phone number. So feel free to give me a call. The first hour is $30, and then we'll figure out what plan works for you after that. Okay, now back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room.
How wrong Susan was about reading the situation is just hilarious. But even with your novel, like, did you think it was important to just have all of those different layers? Like the character who is a little more free going and kind of says F you to the rules of the HOA. Like the one who's by the book, like you had to have all of these different arguments happening.
Definitely. And again, with this book, because it's so satirical, like I want to make sure that the HOA is kind of at the center and you're getting the full scope of like everyone looking in on it from their perspective. So like you said, in order to create drama, you have to have certain neighbors that don't like the HOA, that don't follow the rules and create all this drama that, again, does happen in unfortunately many neighborhoods in regards to it. Some rules are a little ridiculous, right? Regarding like mailbox color subjectivity or exterior paint color or lawns or fences or property lines and just all those sort of things. Some people in the book stick to the rules and they definitely wind up having issues with those who don't follow the rules. So it's definitely quite the dynamic.
Yeah. Well, even, maybe because, and I can reveal this, but like I'm in the midst right now of, and if my boyfriend decides that this is too personal, I'll take it out. But for now, I'll indulge you, VJ, and the audience out there, which is something I'm sure like you've talked about with your boyfriend, like moving in together is such a powerful or a major transition moment. And like, that's something I'm working through. Dealing sounds like it's something I don't want to do, which isn't true. But like the beauty of like starting to integrate your lives together and what that means when you start to cohabitate space together. Like, is that something, even whether it be you personally with your boyfriend or Preston and Carter, like how is that something like you think about when it comes to like moving in together and what that means for creating a home?
Yeah, great question. So I will say we've been together for almost 11 years now. So at first, like when we moved in, like there were some things that we had to get used to with each other, just certain habits or some sort of nuances. But then again, now we don't even think about it. Now we cohabitate and we're kind of always on the same team and we kind of agree. It's one of those things where it just comes naturally, I think. Like you just understand each other, you respect each other's viewpoints when it comes to, living together and building a home together. And so I guess Preston and Carter, since they are more of a long-term established couple, I don't think I actually put in the book anything related to them having any issues with like their home or their dynamics at the home. So I think that's kind of where I want that, at least.
Yeah. So it's, like there could have been, like your novel could have gone in the way of focusing more on the domesticity of their life and say conflict in their interactions. But then you would have missed out on the overall picture of the community. Like it would have become a couple's day-to-day trials and tribulations.
So it's funny you say that. My first book I wrote called The Cul-de-sac, which that book actually focuses on the gay couple in the neighborhood. Again, that's also one of those books about, a gay couple moving in suburbia, but it's less focused on the HOA. It's more so about the couple's dynamics and the issues they have of moving into a brand new home together with a little bit of drama with their relationship. But yeah, definitely. That's actually a book that I kind of took that angle with in that one. Yep.
Yeah. Well, there are moments too where I'm not sure if you've been with him for 11 years. So you've worked through a lot of conversations about boundaries, but like there are still moments where I just say to my boyfriend, this playbook doesn't exist. Like, there's something that you encounter together and you're like, well, wait, how do we approach this? Like, how do we approach if I have a business event to go to, like you don't have to always come with me to an event, or we need to have our own personal time too. So like, that's something I'm realizing there's always a conversation. And I guess communication is key, like to always just openly discuss it.
Definitely. And I will say, maybe you don't know this yet, but when I mention boyfriend, it's actually boyfriends. I'm actually in a 3-way relationship and all 3 of us have been together for 11 years. So now that's a whole new dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say I didn't know that, but now that just like spices up the conversation. So yes. Wait. So you're in a throuple for 11 years?
Yes, we've been together for 11 years.
That's incredible. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So you have you have another person in the relationship to like consider and talk through issues with. Yeah. Well, maybe that's your next book could be about a throuple.
So if you read the book, my second book called Rippling Waters, that there is a lot of tie in there with a 3-way relationship, which is kind of funny, but it takes into a very kind of sadistic side to it. There's a death involved. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, like Desperate Housewives, the end of the episode, they're like, it was the sound of a family secret, where the son like comes down to like see his father maniacally in the pool, like trying to dig up some treasure or heirloom, or we don't really know yet. But yeah, I mean, like something that, I feel really comes through in your work, BJ, is just how psychologically each character is holding on to not just secrets, but like is holding on to a part of themselves that they're not necessarily showing to the public or showing to their community, where I feel like Preston and Carter, the difference is, and maybe you feel this too, like in your living situation, but when you are openly gay or openly queer, in a neighborhood, you really can't hide behind a lot because like you've already broken the boundaries. Like you're not just that straight couple from next door. Like you're already kind of going against the grain, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree with that. I would say a lot of the time, especially with I see in gay in communities too, a lot of the gay couples are more of the open books when it comes to their relationship and just their personalities. They are pretty open. Whereas I'll say a lot of people who, aren't as obviously are forced, to be open with things and sort of already going with the grain. They do have, I won't say more secrets, but they do tend to hide or sort of, I won't say hide necessarily, but they sort of don't reveal to the public, certain things. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think also like something that I know you share and I share is how open certain areas, especially like me being in like the New York City area. There's like pride events in all like so many suburban communities. Like I was just at Montclair Pride and that was incredible. Like I'll be at New York City Pride. And I know like you're always like near like the like queer beachy areas. Like we've talked about Rehoboth, like and I know Rehoboth well. Do you feel like with Preston Carter even, like how much of a difference would this have changed your novel, say if they were in a very like queer categorized suburb or town?
This episode is brought to you by Jira. Ever wonder how those big marketing campaigns that make headlines get delivered on time? It all starts with Jira, the only project management tool you need to plan and track work across any team. Every step of that campaign is organised in one place, from launching the campaign all the way back to designing ads and writing creative briefs. Get started on your next big marketing campaign idea today in Jira.
We get it. Distractions happen. That's why we designed the fully electric, full-sized Volvo EX90 with the latest technology to keep you and those around you safe. Its two-sensor driver understanding system is designed to prevent distractions and help you stay focused. Reserve your Volvo EX90 today. Learn more at volvocars.com/US.
Yeah, it would have definitely a different effect, right? Because a lot of the characters I kind of throw in there are, again, not as, gay friendly. Some of them are very, religious. And again, the political views too of certain people in the neighborhood. I mean,
It's officially beach season, which means I need all of my favorite Bath and Body products, but this time I need beachy scents. Well, my favorite Bath and Body boutique, the Soapbox NY, has me covered. From Farmhouse Fresh, my favorite company for all things face masks and retinol creams, to Finchberry, a beautiful bar of soap that looks like a slice of cake. I especially love the emerald one because it reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. I also love Wavertree in London. They have summer cocktail scents like peach Bellini, Prosecco, and so much more. They also have a blending bar with over 200 essential oils. So Janine, the co-owner, she knows my favorite scent is French vanilla and almond. So I've had the body wash, the bubble bath, the body lotion. If you don't live on Long Island, which I don't live on Long Island anymore, I still am getting my favorite products because the Soapbox NY has an extensive website, as well as an Instagram and TikTok where you can place your orders by just DMing Janine. So if you do live on Long Island, definitely make a day trip out to Port Jefferson. It's a beautiful beach town. So you can follow the Soapbox NY on Instagram and TikTok. That's at the Soapbox NY. And you'll see all ways to contact them. I hope that you enjoy all of their products as much as I do. I mean, I now have gotten all my family and friends addicted to the Soapbox NY. So if I can get more of you out there addicted to their Bath and Body boutique, the better.
I mean, that's the reason I include it because just, again, that's what's going to create the drama, right? And that's, again, with a lot of HOAs, sometimes there is a political sort of piece to it where, again, people in neighborhoods, sort of combat with one another because of those sort of reasons. They might not, in their minds, they might not necessarily think they're doing it. But again, there's always a little bit of bias behind certain people's thoughts and opinions on others and neighbors and things like that. And that's definitely the route the book takes with those sort of perspectives as well.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes, like in your book does this so well, which is sometimes you think, or those who aren't used to like gay couples, or they don't like know a lot about different terminology, like even like what an open marriage is, or what a, you know, polyamory is, like just not knowing all the taxonomy, that sometimes people think like gay couples are going to have more drama than straight couples, which is completely untrue. Because like even in Desperate Housewives, how about that scene when they're at like almost a Texas Roadhouse, but some cattle steakhouse, with like the nostalgic salad bar. I still can't believe we had those salad bars that were like really
I know.
unsanitary. But and someone would always mix the Jello with the salad, and then it's
Ugh.
like, yeah. But like I just remember Ruby Tuesday because I would go there sometimes. Or I don't know if you had Old Country Buffet. Do you remember that place?
I mean, I've known other buffets that have that similar kind of vibe.
Golden Corral, one of those classic buffets that are no longer here. Rest in peace. I do like a good buffet, but it just has to be like well maintained. But yeah, all that thing about buffets I'm getting to, which is Bree's husband, like when he just comes out with "I want a divorce," and she like has her picture perfect method acting going on, and then like she goes in the bathroom, she cries, then she comes out and she's glowing. Like that is zany. Like there's something not psychologically well in their relationship. I think that's way more dramatic than anything going on with like the queer characters who come up in Desperate Housewives. It's like just interesting, how there's drama and secrets in all relationships, or not in all relationships, but like in all different types of relationships, there can be secrets. And it's usually the ones where you think everything looks amazing on social media, that there's a lot of red flags.
Yeah, no, I think, and like that scene too, you just mentioned, that's where it goes back to like the campiness too, right? A situation that is like so zany and psychologically odd, like the way, I guess, the music behind the scenes, how they make her come out so perfect. They put like a little bit of a humor behind it. I think, again, one of those scenes, and of the many scenes, that why gay culture is so drawn to it.
Yeah, you're right. I think the campiness of Desperate Housewives, it's such a cult, like it's now becoming like a gay cult classic. Almost like why Legally Blonde or Mean Girls, like all of these films or TV shows from that time. I mean, Cruel Intentions is like one of my favorite films too, from the 90s. Like anything with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Reese Witherspoon, I'm like behind.
Right. If you want an interesting thing to go back on, if you have Amazon Prime, one thing I started about a year ago, I went back and started watching Dynasty from the 80s, which is like hugely gay camp, gay culture, like following Joan Collins and just how that was definitely something. And it's kind of fun to go back and watch. I mean, you have to have a lot of time. Gosh, there was like 8 seasons, I think, like 25 episodes per season. But yeah, it's one of those shows too that you kind of see the campiness, the glitz and the glamour, and why it became such a gay hit. So
yeah, no, I'm going to, because I've never actually seen Dynasty. Something I actually feel that I'm doing now is just like why even returning to Desperate Housewives with you is so enjoyable, BJ, is I'd rather return to like older TV shows or films, because I feel like it's just so hard unless there's something everyone's talking about, like Saltburn, or something that's just on everyone's mind in the zeitgeist right now. There's just so much coming out that I have such a hard time focusing on these new shows. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather just return to the nostalgic past and analyze it. But, it's a whole other debate for another time. So, I feel like as we're nearing the end, BJ, which this has just been such an enjoyable conversation. Thank you. For being just such a wonderful conversationalist. You make my job easy here. Is like, what from your novel was the hardest maybe not a plot point, but just took you a longer time to work through when crafting the novel?
Good question. I would say, and it's funny, some people who had that read my book and come up with this, and they're like, how come you let Deidre Conrad get away with all shit? How come nothing horrible happened to her? Things like that. And I think that was the difficult part, is not putting my own political views too much into the book and taking others into account. Now, there are things where I just put in the book that I think that are ridiculous, and that obviously I make them a little known. But I think the harder part for me was taking that approach too, where I did sort of let certain people get away with certain things, and like which again, in the real world, I hope they wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't actually let them get away with that, like in like my neighbors or friends or anything that happens. So I guess that was kind of difficult in that regard, but I think I did it pretty well. I would say, just trying not to step on too many toes, and trying to make it humorous and satirical without being so aggressive or biased against a certain person or people or things like that. And I think I did it right. So I guess that was difficult too, but I definitely painted a more of a satirical, humorous outlook on it, so that I made sure that I didn't, try not to step on too many toes. Again, I made it as campy as possible so people wouldn't get offended and things like that. So,
yeah. Well, and I feel like something I want to commend you with as just a writer, BJ, and maybe this is actually speaking to the current moment, is, I'm all for really social political commentaries. Like, I really loved like Promising Young Woman, or my boyfriend, we just watched Assassination Nation, which I never saw, but that was, you have to be ready. It's intense. But even it's by the director of Euphoria. So it's intense. But I do feel like things have become, I don't know if you feel this way, like even in the literary world right now, I feel like a lot of contemporary literature, things have become so TikTok inspired, like viral inspired, that it's upping the ante. Like, okay, can we psychologically trigger your amygdala even more, like get you even more afraid or like scared, and like I think there's a purpose for all these social political commentaries, like don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes it's okay to just have your like Doritos and your like Coke, and like have like there's always going to be a moral and a lesson. And like what I love about like Up Your HOA Hole is that you're so good at finding that comedy through the social lens, but it doesn't feel like you're trying to hit us over the head with a lesson politically, if that resonates maybe with a point of what, like how you see yourself as a writer.
Yep, no, and that's definitely the direction I was going with. So I'm glad you actually brought that up and saw it like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I feel like it's good to have your genres, to have a wide range of reading choices. And like, it's great to always want to have a moral lesson, but the moral lessons don't always have to be something philosophically we don't have to be bogged down by the moral lesson. Like, you know, we can read our like John Kabat-Zinn and mindfulness, but you could also have, BJ Irons and other writers who are always just like falling into that fantasy. Like that's what I love about your work, is you just really understand the excitement of literature, like the excitement of reading. And like I just like a book that you care about your reader's experience and it comes through. So,
Oh, no, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you so much. I love that. Thank you for saying that.
No, it's true. Well, so with all of your work, BJ, not just Up Your HOA Hole, how can everyone find you, your social media channels, where to get your books, all the things?
Perfect. Thank you. No, so my main platform I use is Instagram, and you can follow me at BJ Irons, BJIRONS. And then even through my Instagram, I have a link tree that has a link to all the books I have out right now, most of which are on Amazon. They're available on Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and all of them are paperback as well. Mainly through Amazon is the main, I guess, a sales channel that I go through. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, VJ. You know, you're always welcome here, and I'm sure we'll find another time to have you on again with your future book. So thanks. And I really can't wait for everyone to get their hands on Up Your HOA Hole. I put BJ's link tree in the show notes, so just click it wherever you're listening to this. And until next time, VJ, this was so fun.
Yes, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you for having me, Dr. Rimby. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.